So the first one we were able to get zero down on the truck, $89,000 truck. So we had a note on that truck. Second one we had to put, I believe 30% down, which between the four of us wasn't too terrible. And it was a $92,000 truck. And then we had a $45,000 truck that we bought for the driver that we started with. He wanted an older Peterbilt. And that was also another mistake we made, was buying that truck.
Why?
So we bought it out of Florida, and they claimed it had 400,000 miles on it. And we bought it sight unseen. We had someone inspect the truck in Florida. They brought up a few things that could be wrong with it, minor things. So we got those fixed. And he ran that truck for 3 weeks, and it went into the shop, and we had to spend $40,000 on it.
Oh.
And we found out that it wasn't 400,000 miles. It was 1.4 million miles.
Oh, wow. Is there any recourse to that?
Later down the road, we got into a legal battle with the person that sold us the truck, and we got the repairs back. It was about all we got. But the value of the truck was gone because it had 1.4 million miles on it at that point. And
on a side note, the best Married with Children episode ever is when, what is it, Ed O'Neill, what's his name?
Al Bundy.
Al Bundy gets his Dodge to cross over 1 million miles. I don't know why, but if you ever watch it, that's the best one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you've got 3 trucks.
3 trucks.
December 2021, right?
2021 December we had 2, and we got the 3rd truck, I believe, in February of.
So the 3rd truck you get it. So by March you realize, shit.
So we're still pretty excited at that point, but we had to buy trailers now because we lost that contract with the steel company. So you can run what they call power only, which is just the truck, and pick up, use other people's trailers that are preloaded, like dry van stuff. It's not as profitable. So we wanted to be as profitable as we could, of course. So we figured the expense of buying a flatbed trailer, and we found out I was trying to take what I learned from the storage facility and put it into the trucking industry, which flatbeds, they pay more because there's less of them out there. Like you see the dry van stuff, like the big white boxes behind them, right? The dry van stuff's all over the place, but the flatbed stuff is a little bit more rare, so they pay a little more for the loads. So we were trying to go toward the niche of the industry, and so we bought 2 trailers, and so we let one run power only, and then we had 2 flatbeds, and we were just running off the load board. And then when we got into like March is when things really started to turn for the worse.
How so?
So we were averaging around $4 a mile for the loads that we were carrying. So if we, went $4 a mile at the time was pretty solid. It covered all the expenses we needed, the fuel, the pay the driver, pay the dispatcher, any kind of maintenance stuff we had to go on. And that slowly trickled to $2 a mile.
Oh, what made that happen? Is something in the economy?
The whole industry was in a bind.
Why?
So we don't blame a ton of our approach on our failure on this. We kind of hit the trucking industry at a tough time. And there's tons of theories on why it all tanked, right? So who knows why, but the rates were down to 2 instead of 4, so we were making half the income. At that time, we went from what we were paying in diesel fuel was $2 more a gallon hitting into that spring. So we were paying almost $10,000 more per truck.
Economics right there for you.
It's the Bidenomics for sure. So we were cut in half on what we were able to generate per mile. We were also spending $2 a gallon more on a truck that gets 5 miles a gallon. So we were spending around $10,000 more per truck in fuel a month. So we had about $30,000 a month in expenses that we weren't accounting for. On top of, instead of us making that 10 to 15 grand a week, we were making like 7 to 9. And so it was kind of a perfect storm where we were just driving down, and everything was kind of turning at that point.
How long, by March, how long until you guys actually sat down and said, we either have to like shut this down or skim it down to one truck, restart? Did you guys try like any saving operations, I guess, like to before you threw the baby out with the bathwater kind of approach?
So our first kind of attack on the situation was we need to land another contract.
Okay.
Because as we were kind of studying up on, the best techniques in the freight world is if you can land contracts, you at least have, like, you can budget a lot easier, right? Because you have these loads for 6 months, they're going to pay this. So now you just work on your expenses because what you're going to generate. The issue was our first driver that we thought was a rock star. He was a rock star because he was driving over hours. So you can only drive a certain amount of hours a day.
That's
and you
part of the transportation.
You have to shut down.
Yeah.
And so he got pulled over a few times, and on his log, he'd been running for way longer than he should. So we have what's called an authority is what we run under in the trucking industry. And you almost get like a credit score. So like when you get pinged with different, negative things from the DOT, like your credit score goes down. And so when we were approaching these different companies to get contracts, they would pull our authority and be like, y'all have had this, too many violations. There's other companies we'd rather go with. Oof. So we were coming to them with 3 trucks thinking that was going to be, 3 trucks, 2 trailers, we're flatbed, we can run whatever. But we couldn't land a contract because our authority was hit too many times with violations. So after about a month of learning that we were just going to have to keep day by day running off a load board and not really knowing where the next dollar was coming from, we decided we needed to get rid of the driver that was affecting our authority. So we had that conversation. That was my first firing. And
how did he feel?
It was terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty.
So he was like if you can imagine, like, he was from Massachusetts, but he lived in Florida. So he was like a redneck northerner that kind of looked like Post Malone, but he's a truck driver.
Was he big? Big guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he's like 6'4". Big dude.
You're like, he's going to whip my ass.
Big dude.
So you did this over the phone.
I did. Well, so here's the strategy. One of the harder things we learned is how do you get these drivers out of the truck to fire them?
That's what I was thinking. Like, how do you get them not to take the truck out with them?
Because they drive 3 weeks at a time and take a week off, but they take their truck home. Mm. And so on their week break, their truck's with them at their house. And so it's like, how do we get them out of the truck? And that was when that truck we put them in went down. And so we put it in at Rush Truck Center here in Nashville. We're like, we're just going to fly you home. They said it's going to be a couple weeks. Like, we'll fly you home. We'll give you a week's pay while this truck's getting worked on. There's no reason for you to just like sit around Nashville, get back to your family, So we flew him down there. And then after that week, we called him and let him know we weren't going to fly him back. That was the conversation.
How did you take it? How'd that go?
He was like, hey, after everything I've done for you, I've made all this money for y'all. You're just going to F me like this and put me out on the streets and stuff. It was like, and we'd had many conversations with him before that, right? I'd passed through all that, but we'd had 3 or 4 different conversations like, Josh, you got to start running legal. You're killing our business. And he just never did it. So